really get my picture taken with Bill Bellamy for free?
That's what I'm just saying. Y'all be in Rigby's at 4 o'clock today.
And Bill Bellamy's really gonna be there.
Yes! Actually, it's Bill Bellamy's evil twin. It's not his evil twin. Be at Rigby's at 4.
How did you get Bill Bellamy to come to Rigby's and take pictures?
He doesn't know yet. Not true.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Kenan and Kel show. I go by Aaron.
And I go by the name of Adam.
And this week we are reviewing episode number 17 of season 3.
You got it.
Of the 90s Nickelodeon sitcom Kenan and Kel. This episode is called Picture Imperfect. And boy, is it a perfect time with Kenan and Kel.
Good save. I had a fun time sitting down with this one, especially after last week. We're definitely going up, not down.
This is a much appreciated recovery from the Kenan and Kel gang. Last week was rough, but this episode I thought was really fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And for what it's worth, I did a little research into some of the things that were airing when this first came out. February 6, 1999 was a back-to-back Kenan and Kel episodes. The contest and Picture Imperfect aired right beside each other. So I think that's what they did to kind of hook in that not-so-great episode.
Oh.
They did it like a 2-for-1 style deal.
Wow. Yeah, they really had to. They would have lost a lot of viewers if they saw that last episode.
And they're like, "What? How dare you do this?"
My favorite part about that is that I don't even remember what the episode was about. I just block it off.
Let's keep moving forward then.
Okay.
This episode is directed by Kim Fields and written by Amy Berg and Dacre Herman.
Wow, they did an excellent job. I thought it was the normal crew.
They each wrote 2 episodes in all of Kenan and Kel. This is one that they did together. Dacre wrote Surprise, Surprise earlier this season, and Amy wrote the #1 ranked episode on IMDb, 3 Girls, a Guide to Cineplex.
Wow.
So you can really see the talents combined together here.
This is an excellent episode.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they wrote more.
Yeah, I agreed. After rewatching this episode, I followed both of them on Twitter. I'll DM them and ask them why their episode was so good.
Why are you guys so good at making this episode?
Let's get into the show, shall we?
Shall. All right. On stage, we have Kenan in his normal garb. Button-down plaid. And then we have Kel, who has something very peculiar around his neck.
And what might that be?
That is a camera.
Yes, one of these old 90s cameras. One that takes up, you need both hands and most of your chest to wield.
Yes, it has the really large flash on the side. It's almost like a limb that's attached, like a tree branch. And then, the big camera body.
Yeah, we have gone so far in just, 25 years.
So far. Especially in terms of photography. Yep.
Yeah, the fact that we have a better camera in our pockets nowadays. And that's not even its main feature.
I'm somewhat of a Joe Rogan fan, and he put up a picture of the moon that he took from his new Samsung phone. And you can he zoomed in so much, you can see the craters.
Yeah, that's always so cool.
Wild.
Kel gives Kenan the camera because he has a goal that he needs himself to accomplish. What's that goal?
To get photographed?
On TV.
On TV. They're like, and Kenan says, "Kel, you're already on TV every week. Why can't you just watch yourself?" He's like, "No, I want to be photographed." And then he starts posing. He's like, "How about this? Yeah. How about this one? How about this one?"
The audience loves every one of his poses.
Yeah. The audience, by the way, they gave a rousing ovation for Kenan, and then an even louder one for Kel this episode.
Yeah, that's another thing I was doing some kind of homework on. I've been reading a lot of forum posts of Kenan and Kel through the ages. People in the early aughts talking about what the reception of their show, what happened, what went wrong, because there's that period of time there where Kenan and Kel kind of stopped being friends.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Something that people point out is that whoever is announced second gets more applause. So there's I think one episode in the canon, we may have even seen it already, where Kel's introduced first, Kenan's introduced second, and that time Kenan gets more applause.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's some really groupthink type stuff,
I think it definitely has to do with who's in the audience and what's happening around that date and like what was their day like, right? Because they're filming where like in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Is it near like an amusement park like Orlando? Or is it like, did they do something during the day and then they're going to Kenan and Kel at night? Or what's the deal? Like, how do people...
Yeah.
And so I feel like something might have been happening earlier in the day, and they were just really hyped up for this episode.
Yeah, they're properly entertained for this one. I'm always curious, too, about, like, they talk about canned laughter and stuff like that on TV shows. Like, how real is this audience reaction? And it's like, all right, how many takes did they do of scenes? Did they, like, just record the audience laughing the whole time and play with it? I don't know. That's all like showbiz stuff I'm always ignorant of, but you know.
But at least you're interested, right? At least you're interested in it enough to ask the questions.
To me, it's kind of like fireworks. I almost don't want to see how it's made and the science behind it.
Yeah, it's more fun. It's more fun. Yeah, that's why, in chemistry class, when you do like the chemistry of fireworks, it's like, well, this sucks. It's like, I like when they're just explosions in the sky.
Yeah, don't ruin the magic for me, please.
Eventually, Kenan takes like a very quick picture of Cal doing one of these poses, and he essentially says, "You'll have plenty of time for taking pictures in tonight's show. Come on." What is it? Laverne?
Laverne?
Is that a photography reference? I'm not.
I think it's like a TV show reference, Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, right.
Hey, Kenan, you pronounced my name wrong.
Kenan, can I have my camera back? Aw, here it goes. Let's go to the first scene. Rigby's. Okay, Adam, before we get any further, this episode, Kenan is in his true form. Cal is in his true form. Chris in his true form. Marc Cram, who's going to come in a moment, is in his true form. I think this is just an excellent writing of these characters.
They finally got Marc Cram right.
Yes.
It took he was introduced early in the season and he was kind of a stumbling block, but I think they finally nailed him.
So we start by Chris is in the back room and he yells and asks Kenan for some help. Kenan is reading a comic book at the front counter. So he pretends that there's some customers and he can't help Chris.
Yeah. Cal enters wearing an orange shirt. He's got 2 liters of orange soda.
And Kenan hypes him up. He's like, "Hey, how's it going, fella?" Which usually, like we just said last week, that doesn't happen much.
Yeah, well, last week Kenan was just mean to him out of the gate. But this one he's like, "Oh yeah, come on, buddy. I'm not working. Join me."
Yes. So yeah, Cal has 2 liters of orange soda.
One's empty, one's full.
And so he promptly puts the empty one on the counter, proceeds to pour the one bottle into the other bottle while getting it all over the counter.
Yeah. and Kenan's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm refilling my orange soda bottle." And Kenan's just like, "Why don't you just use the new one?"
I didn't think of that. So then he pours what he did pour into the old one back into the new one, and it just gets everywhere.
It's just a big mess. I think I've come to terms that Cal consumes so much orange soda that it's okay if it's wasted.
That's right.
It's not wasted, as we're about to see.
No, it's not. Okay, so I have a question about just the design of soda bottles.
Okay.
2-liter soda. Why is it the same nozzle mouthpiece opening as a normal bottle?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Don't you think it should be a wide mouth bottle? Do you think it's just so that the company only has to buy one type of cap?
That is probably the most accurate answer.
Because it seems like it's almost encouraging people to drink from the bottle.
I think it's for pouring purposes too.
But pouring out of that small little opening is terrible.
You don't think it's like a good pace?
No, it splashes everywhere because too much comes out at once.
Yeah, well, if you've ever tipped a 2-liter upside down, you see it's not a smooth pour. All the carbonation and kind of sputters and.
Right, but why? Why don't they just have orange juice? Like orange juice has the big wide. Why don't they just have that for soda?
I also think that there should be a 2-liter sized can.
Oh my God! Why would,
a big can that you have to open up like a can of tuna.
Well, that's so awful. That'd be so terrible if they did that.
It's probably what they do at restaurants and stuff like that, right? They buy a big bulk amount.
Not no. They buy stuff in boxes, and the boxes have bags in them, and they usually have syrup, and then they have a soda machine that's just carbonated water, and they mix the syrup together.
Yeah, which is it's just, every time I see one of those machines, I'm less and less interested. It's a Coke machine. It's got 200 flavors. You mean it's got 200 variations of syrup and
syrup? Yeah, the syrup mixed with carbonated water. that's overpriced.
It's like a ketchup container where it's like the first squirt always you can if you look closely you see it.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No,
I agree.
But Chris comes out front and he's all like, where's all the customers?
Kenan's like, oh, they all left right now at the same time. First off, I gotta point out, Kel's wearing a bright orange button down.
Oh yeah, he's being real safe.
And then Chris says, Kel, look at the mess you've made. Oh, okay. And he stands back and he looks at the mess he made, a little comically missing the point.
Yeah, how much longer do you want me to look at it?
He's like, oh, to clean it up. And then he gets a straw and he starts slurping it all up. As he's doing that, who enters, Adam?
Bill Bellamy.
Whoa, the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, this guest star is on. Do you know anything about Bill Bellamy?
No.
If you watch this show, you'd probably also not know anything about Bill Bellamy. Because he's kind of, I want to say he's sort of an interchangeable celebrity in this one.
Actor, comedian, Def Comedy Jam, stand-up comedian.
He was a stand-up comedian in the 90s, and he had a show on MTV that was like real popular with the kids.
Oh, my God. He is credited for creating or coining the phrase booty call.
Yes. Booty call comes from this man that walked into Rigby's.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That's the celebrity that's currently here. And he is getting groceries.
Yes, he is.
I think Chris theorizes that he's like filming a movie in town. He's been going in at the same time every day to buy the same things every day. What does he buy?
3 tomatoes and tomato juice.
Yep. For some. That's good random. Right? Last week
That
we were
is good random.
We were mad at the randomness. That's a pretty funny bit.
And so he's been coming in every single day that week and buying the same thing. Now, Adam, do you want to explain why?
Oh, sure. Like what Kenan theorizes why?
Well, yes, what Kenan theorizes why, but then what do you theorize that he's doing?
So Kenan, his thought process is, he's like making a really bad joke when he's checking out. And he's like, that's great, because if you can't eat a tomato, you can also drink one. I have no idea what he's doing. Is this like it's like a fake blood type routine?
I think he's seeing probably a woman, and she has an Italian family, and he's trying to perfect his own tomato sauce so that he can impress her family.
Yeah, that would be the only explanation for this. And he probably has like one big box of pasta, so he doesn't have to do that again every day.
Or maybe he is going to he's a comedian, right? So he's going to his arch enemy's show and he's selling some tomatoes outside to the fans.
That tracks. I wonder if it's like I didn't watch I watched one of his stand-up spots. I didn't watch any of his specials. I wonder if this is like an inside joke into one of his routines.
I would hope so. If not, then it's okay still.
Yeah.
Anyways, he's committed. He's buying these 3 things. Yeah, and so he checks out with Kenan, and Kenan goes, 3 tomatoes. And if you don't want to eat them, you can drink them. And he says, oh, yeah, that was the same thing you said yesterday. It's like...
So Chris' theory is that he's in town filming a movie. Cal's theory that persists throughout this episode is that he's actually looking for his evil twin brother.
No, wait. He is the evil twin brother.
Yeah, Cal like incepts himself with the idea of an evil twin.
He's fixated on this idea that Bill Bellamy is actually Bill Bellamy's evil twin.
Yeah. Chris says, I watch TV, and then runs off into the back room.
And then Cal just like can't leave him as soon as he sees him, and it's clear nobody knows how to deal with celebrities.
Yep. Including Marc Cram, who enters.
Yeah, how does Mark react? I forget.
As Bill Bellamy's leaving, Marc Cram comes in and he's like, hey, music videos! And he starts dancing.
Oh, right. But again, everybody is just having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
This scene, it's like really fun. You could tell like Chris's character's actually laughing and enjoying himself.
And Mark is laughing at something very in particular. He reveals that we're working on the yearbook as part of the yearbook committee. Kenan points out that you're on the yearbook staff with all the other winners.
Yeah, he's absolutely obliterated Mark. He just roasted him to bits. He just goes, oh yeah, with all the other winners. It's like, oh my God. Kenan's like a bully.
Yeah, and he's oblivious because he's like, yeah, it's Great, because our boy Mark likes to spell.
Yes, it's a good thing that they kept that because I was worried they wouldn't.
You'd worry he'd be a little inconsistent. He's laughing because Kenan's picture looks really funny.
Funny like, ha funny, or funny like, wow, isn't it funny how good Kenan looks? And you can tell that this is just rubbing Kenan the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
He does not know what Mark means, and it has to do with his public reputation.
Oh, yeah. So he's very much like, starts to badger him more. He's like, I kind of need to see it. And he starts like cornering him in Rigby's.
And Mark's like, you'll see it when the yearbook comes out, silly.
And he's very much like, it's only me and Mrs. Creepak, I think is the name I wrote down. Eventually, Kenan chases Mark down through Rigby's and gets him to concede.
That's right. So let's just talk about Mark real quick, in case you forgot. Mark is this nerdy, like bookworm rule follower.
Yeah.
Who's terribly afraid of getting in trouble, which is most likely why he stopped hanging out with Kenan and Kel for most of season 3.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good juxtaposition. You get to have him in this episode as the moral compass, as what's the correct thing that we should do, and so that you can see Kenan do the opposite.
Yes, I was going to point that out. Yeah, I'm glad you said something. That's what Marc Cram's character, he is the moral compass, the conscience that's like, we have to follow the rules, we have to do what's right. And Kenan's like, as we'll see later, he's like, or do we?
Yeah, it grounds Kenan's behavior in a world of he's doing the wrong thing.
So we go to the dark room.
It's hard to see in here. Let me turn on the lights, is the first thing that Kel says.
Yes. So we're going to have to, I feel like most of our audience is probably of the age where they know what this room is. But back in the day when you used to take photographs, they would be on film, and then you had to hang the film or whatever, soak the film in a dry room. I don't really know how it works,
You had to use a solution type thing, and it had to be underexposed. That was the thing. If you shone light on it, then it would like gray out the picture as it's developing.
Right.
Again, how far have we come?
Exactly,
You
right?
used to use a disposable camera, then you take it to a store, and then you come get your photos later.
Have you ever seen an old yearbook, like from the 70s or 60s or something? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's amazing because this is how they had to do it. They had to take photographs, print them out, and then they would have to copy them into a page, and then they would have to, like...
Yeah, talking about the yearbook type thing, like they would, like, literally... the reason why it's called cut and paste in your computer is because that's literally what they had to do back then.
Right. Yeah, and we don't think of that anymore. We just
No.
think.
So yearbook back then was a lot more challenging.
Oh yeah. And so this is Mark's, like, this is his extracurricular, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That would take all of his time. It's the one thing he does that isn't totally a nerd thing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's like, photography and behind the scenes, and you're highlighting everybody else's experience in high school. It's a big deal being on a yearbook.
Oh, yeah. So he points out that there's a table, like, in the front where everyone's yearbook photos is A through L. The rest of the alphabet's apparently hidden, like, amongst the cabinets on the walls.
And so Mark is trying to find the photographs. He's trying to, he opens a cabinet where all the film's hanging. Kenan just needs to see his. And while they're doing that on the back wall, Kel is facing the audience with the A through L's, and he starts to look through the A through L's to try to find his. Kimball.
He's smart enough to put that together, but he's not smart enough to properly handle fluids, as this episode has already proven.
And so there's this ink or whatever, the solution, and he goes and he's taking the lid off a box, and so as he takes the lid off of a box, he just knocks this whole thing over on top of all of the A through L photos.
Yeah, there's just a picture of ink all over it. Meanwhile, Kenan's in the background going through, like, Rufus, Rogan, Rawmel. Oh, this is all mixed up.
And then Kel, you can just see he's trying to dry it off, and then he starts to move it around. He does like the smear thing, and there's just ink and pictures everywhere. He's pulling off film that's hanging from the ceiling, trying to, like, wipe it all up, and he's getting all tangled.
I love Kel with a mess in front of him, trying to make it better, making it worse.
That is the best Kel.
It's a great formula. Kenan's the first one to spot that Kel is making a giant mess.
And so as Mark is about to turn around, Kenan's like, oh my God, he can't see. So he pulls Mark over to this cabinet, And he's like, hey, is that a watch in there? And he throws him in the cabinet and closes the door.
Again, good use of Mark. That's one of his other traits. He collects, like, watches.
Right, yeah, it's a callback. That's a brilliant callback.
Yeah, so while he's in there, Kenan and Kel says, I can explain. Oh, no, I can't.
Cal is really maturing. He's learning his limits of what can and can't be explained.
Yeah, eventually Mark's released from the cabinet, and he sees the mess that's been made.
And he just kind of faints.
So they take him back to the Rockmores, where, like we said, Mark's distraught. Mark's like, oh man, I gotta tell on us, like we're not. This is bad. We're gonna get in so much trouble.
Kenan says to Mark, there's no reason to overreact. While Mark's like coddling all this film. It's just destroyed. Mark just kind of stands up and goes, yes, there is!
Yeah, and he goes over to the door, and Kenan cuts him off. He shuts the door and locks it.
Yeah. Mark says, we're going to have to tell. And then, like, before you know it, Kenan's closing the door, and he locks it. He goes, what do you mean? Like, no, we don't. We don't have to tell anybody anything.
According to Mark, the deadline is this Friday. That's 4 whole days away.
This is actually very funny. Kenan goes, Friday! Oh, Friday, we can do Friday. And then Kel asks, Kenan, how far can we run in 4 days? Because it's pretty clear that this situation is not good.
The number of students that they have to get is 500 different student photos.
500? That's like 1 million people. Kel is just hitting this episode. Like, that's just outstanding Kel.
I also love it when Kel, like, uses an equal sign for 2 different numbers. It's just Mark's despondent. He says, my life is a big fat lie. Kenan and Kel get down to business. We started a really awesome montage here.
So the montage is of Kenan and Kel in the school with the camera taking photographs of people.
Yep. So they go over to 2 people. I think it was the bully from that one episode that like Kenan had like a talking to. His name's Kennedy, and then there's also Shelton.
Yeah, the last name's Kennedy and Shelton. And they're like, move aside, Shelton. And so Mark and Kel hang this poster board.
This blue background, like put it right behind him.
Behind Kennedy, this big guy. And then they just take a picture of him, and he like plays along. He like puts thumbs up and is like smiling.
I feel like it's not candid, but the opposite of like back in the 90s. That's how people reacted to cameras. When you see one, you're like, oh, I guess I'll smile.
Right.
Yeah. So he poses, gives like a thumbs up, and Keith's like, thank you. How do you describe the transition of this scene?
Okay, so remember that last episode? There was like these green boxes, and then the image slid. Mm-hmm. Now it's a red box around the frame, and then it just kind of slides.
I kind of like it because it's like a film, like a photo film.
Right.
And the red's like the red, the dark room. So
it makes sense. As
they're getting photos, like the photos are developing.
This next one, it looks like Kel's drinking from the water fountain, and then Mark is just standing there with the poster. This girl walks by. And they just they all jump around her, pull up the sign, and she looks terrified. Like she is out of sorts right now.
I didn't write who wrote it, but the scary phrase that I have here is "ooh boo boo loo boo loo." I think that's what Kenan shouts at her.
Oh my god!
So yeah, she's terrified. And they take her photo. Then we go to the next one.
Oh yeah, they're in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have Nick Cannon's character.
Oh my god, that is Nick Cannon.
It's really funny because like on Wikipedia, like it's listed like guest stars Bill Bellamy and Nick Cannon.
Oh my god.
Like he's not a guest star, he's just an extra that.
And yeah, on the board it says science projects due today. And yeah, so Nick Cannon walks in with this like orb of green stuff, and
he's got like really some beakers and vials on a platform.
It almost looks like a fancy coffee maker like from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, they made a lot of coffee in that show.
Yes. So, so that's... It's like hooked up to an orange, and then, they take the flash, blinds him, and then Nick Cannon just kind of spills it.
Like, falls forward onto the desk. Then we go back to Kenan and Kel arguing about the camera. Doing some, let go of the camera, Kel.
And then, of course, it falls and breaks.
Yeah, it falls, opens up, and I think that exposes the film. Like, all the photos they've taken up till then are now no longer usable.
Right. Kel wraps the film around the camera. It's pretty bad.
I think the last one is that they go up to to a girl. How would you describe this one?
Mark tries to square her shoulders to the camera, which you don't do that.
No, you don't do that to people.
You don't grab a girl by the shoulders and try to square her. Like, you don't do that.
She responds correctly by pushing him away.
She pushes him into the lockers and runs away. And that's kind of like the montage of trying to take pictures. Now, we should talk. Was there a better way to do that? Like, if they did destroy the pictures, right? Would it have been an okay idea to just tell somebody what happened?
Well, yeah, coming clean is basically what Mark wouldn't do this whole time.
And I don't know. I mean, I understand Kenan doesn't want to do that. But even so, you could have asked people, hey, there was a problem with your picture in the yearbook. Can we take another one?
Yeah, you could literally go through that, and I don't think people would be like, oh, no, yeah, no problem.
Right.
Yeah, doing it, like, very secretive is unnecessary.
No, but funny.
They're sad at Rigby's because this is taking far too long, and they're not doing very well.
And there's a customer at the checkout, and he goes, how are we going to get all these pictures done by Friday? And the woman goes, I don't know.
Yeah, and he's all, I appreciate the generous response. They're basically going like over the hit list of people that they have to get, right? Neil Brennan, Beth Calloway, Carson, something, Wayne Conley.
Yeah, and they find out that they only have 3 out of 500.
Yes, the 3 that they listed of how many they have so far. Did you catch what those names are?
No, I may or may not have watched this episode while in a vehicle. So I did not take notes.
The 3 that they watched were Deka, Gina, and Amy.
The names of the writers and the director, right?
I don't know about Gina, but where Gina's coming from. But yeah, Deka and Amy are like the writers. So it's
That's
a little
funny.
Easter egg of their names.
Good for them.
Yeah, I think it's Chris that says like, "Are you okay? You seem more flamboozled than usual."
Flamboozled. And then Chris goes, sorry, I just made that word up.
He's like, "All right, you caught me. That one's not real."
Yeah.
Which is really, really fun. The teacher that runs the yearbook committee has been poking her nose around the dark room. Mark comes back and reports that. So he ran away when she was asking him tough questions. They're running out of time.
Okay, so Kel has a pen in his hand. It's a gray pen with almost like a little black thing at the end. Now, I have used many pens like that. I just want to say, it's amazing that is the same exact pen design that's still around today.
The pen has not changed at all.
They really, that Bic pen, they really nailed it.
Well, it's funny because we've been talking about how much the camera's changed.
Yeah, and the pens are the same.
Exactly the same. But just, I don't know, you can't mess with perfect. Same reason why we sell the bike chains. It's kind of like the most ideal design.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to mess up a pen, except for the fact that most of my pens explode. I don't know if that's me or that's
I feel like
pens.
that's you. Like that. I don't think I've ever had a pen go. They just get hard to write. I run out of ink because I preserve them so well.
No, they're in my pocket, upside down. I step on them. They go through the wash.
Kenan's got a new plan. He's like, instead of us finding them, we need them to come to us.
Which is a great idea. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest.
And what I like about that idea is everyone proposes something. Mark's idea.
Yeah. That's a big part of this episode. Everybody's chipping in.
Everyone's contributing. It's all their problem, even though it's kind of Kel's fault. Do you know what Mark's idea is?
I forget.
Bake sale.
I do know that Mark has a brown paper bag that he's hyperventilating into.
Yes. While we're having this conversation, he's just losing it. Cal's idea is a giant magnet.
Oh, right.
He wants to pull everyone together. And then who enters Rigby's?
Bill Bellamy.
He returns.
And guess what Kenan does? Remember the last episode where he had the light bulb above his head? Kenan gets a big smile and raises his finger to the sky and he says, I have an idea.
I thought it was pretty funny that Bill Bellamy enters again and then the audience also cheers a second time.
I mean, this episode's really great because there's the Bill Bellamy thing, and then there's a problem that Kel causes, and then that all comes together.
Yeah, it's the solution.
It's a really well-written episode, and it's very congruent and consistent. It doesn't just jump all over the place for no reason. And that's what I really appreciate about this episode.
I agree. My only note about Bill Bellamy is they don't really use him as a comedian. That's probably because his material isn't fit for kids. And he can pretty much just be this guy from MTV. I guess I understand why that's his role, but it's weird they didn't really use him in that sense.
I feel like I definitely missed the MTV phase. I mean, like, I know you weren't like a big MTV fan, but do you remember people like being obsessed with watching MTV?
Not really. And that's probably the consequence of me being like, at the back end of my generation.
Right.
Because like I remember watching Kenan and Kel, not like when it aired, but like reruns, like, when I was a young kid. So MTV was what the teens were watching when Kenan and Kel in the 90s shows were airing. So
Right.
like born in the 80s is a major
Big
audience.
MTV phase. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of syncing up between the two networks way back when. The Nickelodeon logo, I think, was made by the same people that did the real famous MTV logo.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely serve the same populations, just at different times, right?
Yeah.
Kenan has a speakerphone at school. He's in the hallway that we've seen a couple times before. This one hallway of the school, this one little corner. And so Kenan's on the speakerphone, and he's like getting everybody's attention. And then he stands up on this bench and he points to this sign that that moves into frame, and it says, "Have your picture taken with Bill Bellamy for free."
Rigby's at 4 is what he's shouting to everyone. I want to say I appreciate Kenan's restraints in this, because he recognizes the severity of this problem, and he chose to not charge people extra money.
Yes, that's very fair. He realizes that there's an actual problem, which is what they need pictures. They have a camera to take pictures, and they have the means to develop the pictures. They just need the pictures taken. The dishonesty piece is, I love Kenan and Kel because it kind of like challenges kids to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because Kenan and Kel never tell the truth. Well, Kenan really never does. And then everything gets worse, and it never goes well, which is a great lesson for the show.
Yeah, that's more often than not the moral of the story. And
Right.
It's a great version of what's the worst that could happen by lying. And
Yeah.
usually that's what you see on screen. It's like, wow, they're just really putting a point on telling the truth.
Exactly. But this one is like, okay, at least you're kind of giving people something. You're not just trying to swindle them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're getting something out of it. They're getting a picture with Bill Bellamy.
Except, was Bill Bellamy consulted about this, Adam?
He was not.
And the big jock bully guy, who is clearly like 27, playing a 17-year-old, he's like, did Bill Bellamy agree to this? Or somebody asks that.
Kel shouts, he doesn't know yet.
And Kenan goes, yes!
Yeah, of course he knows, yes. And Kel also, takes the speakerphone and says, actually, it's his evil twin.
And Kenan, like, sees this falling apart before his eyes. But he's trying to just, like, it's almost like there's a bucket filled with water, and there's, like, these holes that keep appearing. And Kenan's just kind of getting, like, Band-Aids and putting it on and trying to keep all the water in the bucket. It's like the water is the hope that this will turn out well.
Again, we've said it before. The best Kenan and Kel episodes are when the plan almost works out fine.
And as we'll see in a moment, it's not the worst plan.
No, it's a pretty smart plan. Kenan is handing out like flyers that has all this information on it. Mark shows up and he does what Kenan usually does at Kel and smacks the posters out of his hands. Mark does that and he's like, do you think this plan's really going to work? And Kel says to him, Kenan's plans always work. Like that one time when... or that other time when... that one... And he can't list any occasion when Kenan's had a working plan.
I do want to point out Mark's body language here. It's almost like he's fallen into a depression. This is not going well at all. He is about to be kicked off the yearbook committee that he spent all year on. He almost looks like somebody who's at like the end of his rope, and it's just this very dramatic. It's kind of a good critique of high school, because that's how high school feels a lot of times. And working with high schoolers, man, their worldview is so small. It's like, wow, most of this stuff that you care about, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's really not that big of a deal. It's hard to see when you're in high school.
And I agree, yeah. His whole body just slumps. So now we go to Rigby's.
Yeah, so we head over to Rigby's, and there is...
a large poster in the back with this information and a giant line of people.
Yep, going out the door.
Oh, yeah.
It might even be 497 people.
I think the fire marshal is going to have something to say about this Rigby's interaction.
Yeah, you think they would have learned by now.
Well, actually, if they keep under 15 people in there at any one time, if they're all out the door, I think they're okay.
Okay, so the transition, there's a poster. It says, stand next to Bill Bellamy and see what develops.
Bill Bellamy is 22 minutes late. He's always here at 4 o'clock. So Kenan and Kel are freaking out.
Mark comes in and he's like kind of just losing it, hectic. All the people are very upset. And then Chris comes over.
Chris is so good in this second half here.
So good. This is the best we've seen Chris.
Because he's like, oh man, the least he can do is show up on time.
It's like Keenan's like, oh, you know those Hollywood types. And he's like, wait, Chris goes, well, this is not Hollywood. He's like, how dare he comes to Chicago, makes a promise, and doesn't keep it.
I think Chris's interest in this is giving like Rigby's like a bad reputation or a bad name. Because this is happening like under his roof.
I think Chris actually cares about his customers, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's also weird that Chris doesn't care about these guys like buying food or snacks or anything like that. Everyone's so focused on Bill Bellamy being there and doing this right.
A great experience had in a great corner store. That's what Chris is going for. He's like, they'll remember this. They'll come back.
Rigby's.
That's right. I gotta say, living in the city, the corner stores are awesome. It's nice having like a little store, and it's like you know the person, you go in and they're friendly, and to have one that sells groceries like Rigby's, it's a pretty great little spot.
Oh, sounds good. As long as you get like a Kenan behind the counter.
Everybody's waiting, and then who enters but Bill Bellamy gets a rousing applause, not just from the people in line, but the audience members.
Yes, and he's kind of like what's going on here? And Chris is all, it's about time.
Yeah, it's great. He just gives him some attitude right away.
Kenan swiftly escorts him to the back room.
Yes. And he's like, what? I don't want to go to the back room. And then Kel goes, evil twins, something like that.
Yeah. So, in the back room, Kenan's all, he starts begging. He's like, oh, you gotta help me, please. And what Kenan does is he goes... He does a similar move to what he did with Mark in his house, and he goes and locks the back door.
And he's like, "Dude, you're scaring me." Oh, I do want to say there's another poster. It says, "Do not exit without your free photo with Bill Bellamy." Okay. Anyways, now we're back in the back room, and Kenan's like, "Mr. B, Bill, Sir Bill, whatever." He does that thing he does. And when he's talking to somebody in authority, I suppose, Kenan is trying to explain himself, and I love this scene.
Yeah, because Kenan has a very meta moment where he says, normally I would come up with some kind of crazy story to explain why I'm in this situation. And he keeps getting interrupted by by everyone out there, which is like Chris comes in back. He's like, hey, move it, Bill.
Yeah, we're not paying you to sit around or something like that.
Yeah, and Cal enters. And he like literally like assaults him. He's like, if you're the real Bill Bellamy, then you wouldn't feel this. He like kicks him.
It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. Then Kenan's like, what I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted was, and then Mark comes in, and what does Mark say?
Just do it.
Please, you have to stay.
And Bill is, I think for his benefit, real cool about this.
Kenan's like, you gotta stay because if you don't, your fans will be upset at you.
Yeah. Bill says, normally I would do this, but you should have asked me first. I've got plans tonight. And Kenan, blackmails him with his fans. And, he opens the door and says, sorry, guys, Bill can't do it. And they all boo.
Kenan sits down. He's like, I didn't do anything. What? I didn't do anything.
I think Bill, replies to him, who are you?
Yeah. He's like, what is happening? So we cut to the front, and for the first picture, a woman stands next to Bill and goes give him a hug, and then they're like, okay, now a little bit further apart, and then of course they're just trying to get the picture for the yearbook.
Yeah. So it's basically Bill standing behind the Rigby's counter, and then to I would say 2 feet to the right of them is someone standing in front of the picture background.
Yep, and then the next girl comes up, and it's like, what's your last name? Something with a Y. He's like, oh, you can go to the back of the line because we gotta take A through L's pictures first. He's like, everybody's all mad.
Yeah, her name is Yakitori. Cal's taking the photos, and he says, smile and say orange soda. Everyone's well utilized, I gotta say.
Yeah, everybody's well utilized this episode. And so Bill Bellamy is finally finished. We cut, and he's just exhausted from taking all those pictures.
Early on, he's asking Kenan, how much longer is it going to take? And Kenan's like, just a couple more hours. And Chris is all, hey, quit whining.
Yeah. It's so good. And then they finish, they get all 500, they cheer a little bit, and then Bill Bellamy's like, can I go yet? They're like, yeah, see ya.
Yeah, they cheer.
Like they don't even have anything for him.
I like how they celebrate too. It's Kenan, Kel, and Mark all like jumping up and down, like having a good time. Kel says, "For an evil twin, you're all right." And as Bill's leaving, Chris stops and has a final word with him. He says, "Hey, Billy, buddy, thanks for spending time with the fans."
And then what does Bill say?
Stop it!
He just goes to Chris, "Stop it!" And he walks out. And then Chris is just like, "What?" And then Kel is just cracking up like, "Ah! Stop it!" Ah! It's really
I feel like
funny.
"stop it" may have been some kind of like MTV catchphrase.
It's quite possible.
Something to that tune. But yeah, no, they did it. Woohoo!
They did it, and then they all leave. They're cracking up that Chris got yelled at. Transition to the next scene. Our last scene is they take a picture of Chris and they invert it.
Yeah,
And
right.
then they transition. I thought that was pretty nice.
We go back to the dark room, and the camera pans from a Kenan who's in disbelief to a Mark who's in disbelief to a Kel who's in disbelief.
And they show it. And of course, what we thought was pictures of all of the people from A through L are just instead 500 pictures of Bill Bellamy.
Kel, where were you aiming the camera?
Cal's just like, "Oh, I was pointing it at Bill Bellamy," or something.
Yeah, I want to make sure Bill Bellamy has gotten every photo. And it's just him. It's just 500 pictures of him.
And then Cal's like, "Oh, well, it's okay." I don't even know what he says. He's like, "It's okay." He goes over and he turns the light on, and then he turns the light on really quick. And of course, that ruins all of the M through Z pictures. And so Cal has now just ruined, in the last seconds of the show, he's just ruined every single photograph that they were going to use for the yearbook.
And Kenan ends it as he should by shouting,
"Why?"
and we go out on stage.
I think this is just a great episode. I don't have the outro.
The exit outro would agree with you, because it's just Kel dancing, like is how he starts it off, and every time they come through those curtains and they're like still dancing excited, it's a good time.
Yeah, you know it was a good episode.
Yeah, Kenan's all like, well, the good news is that now that you've ruined all of them, I won't see my terrible picture. Bill Bellamy enters, and he asks, "Hey, I was wondering if I could get a few copies of those photos you took of me." And he's just like, "Actually, instead of that, we want to do something crazy? Kel, grab a tarantula, a drum set, a mannequin, and meet me at Bill's house. Come on, Bellamy." And he leaves, and Bill's just like, "No, don't go to my house." And Kel's all, "Kenan, where does Bill live?" Oh, here it goes. That's the show. Yeah, a good time.
I think this is a great episode. GREAT, great.
Aaron, whose fault do you think this episode is? Kenan's or Kel's?
Kel's.
Well, what makes you say that?
Oh, just actually, was it maybe Kenan's fault because he pressured Mark? Even if Kenan did stiff arm Mark, I mean, it's just straight up Kel's fault.
Kenan could have gone into that dark room with Mark and just found the photos and seen it, and then, that's it.
Yeah, he could have developed some scheme around getting rid of that photograph, or I don't even know.
He might only ruin his photo instead of the entire class's.
That's right.
Which is what Kel did. But yeah, no, that's I'm with you 100% there. Again, well-utilized Mark, like the first time ever, and just everyone's on key, on point.
Yeah, Chris is excellent. Cal is funny, and all of his jokes are like funny and well written, and everybody's having a good time. They're laughing, they're carrying on, and like, of course, it doesn't work out well. Great Kenan and Kel formula. I do want to say though, I think I liked Bill Bellamy, but I think just in general, having the celebrity on takes a little bit away from true Kenan and Kel.
Yeah, I think I agree. Well, the episode suddenly really focuses on them. If they're used sparingly, I think it works out well. I thought Ron Harper was like a good amount, because it's still, most of that episode was Kenan and Kel like getting into trouble in the hospital.
Right, which was very funny. But I mean, I think the best episodes of Kenan and Kel use everybody. We haven't seen an episode where everybody's in it, but like, it would have, if this episode was close to being like a 10 or like a perfect score, a picture perfect. Like it really was close to it for me. But the fact that the Rockmores weren't in it and Kenan's house wasn't in it much, I think like if they used the main characters, like if there was one Roger joke and one Cheryl comment, it would have been excellent. Like way better.
I agree with that. They weren't utilized at all. But that did allow the other characters to like shine just fine. Like I don't think we would have had this much Chris if they were in it, or Mark.
Definitely. Yeah, I like how Chris and Mark had these things, and even Kel had these things that they just stuck to. They're like, Chris is like angry at him for being late. It's very, very good.
I also think that the jury's out on guest star episodes too. We've got a couple more coming up soon, and sometimes they're a hit, sometimes they're not. Let's wait and see.
That's right. I wonder how much better Good Burger could have been if didn't have to pay Shaq. You know what I mean?
If he did it for free.
Yeah, or how necessary are guest stars? You know what I mean?
That's a really good question. I think they can. Their job is to elevate an episode. But oftentimes, yeah, they can really take the spotlight.
It's like, that's awesome. It's a wow factor, but...
I thought the Chicago witch trials, for example, was very obsessed with Linda Cardellini. It almost paid way too much attention to her.
Right. Well, I think it comes out of fear of people not thinking the show's good enough. They probably had to come up with an agenda to give the producers of basically like, how are we going to make this show guaranteed to get views? And they're like, oh, well, we'll have a couple episodes with guest stars, and then we'll be like, all throughout the week, they're advertising with the fact that Bill Bellamy is going to be on Kenan and Kel.
Sure. And I also think there was it's definitely a hook, too. I feel like they got Bill Bellamy before they knew what this episode was going to be about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. And then they could advertise on MTV, too, that kind of stuff.
A quick word about Bill Bellamy. Bill Bellamy's role with Nickelodeon is a lot larger on another show, Cousin Skeeter.
Oh.
Did you remember this program?
No. Cousin
Skeeter is a show about a kind of a sitcom family, and their weird cousin that kind of comes to live with them, who is a puppet, who is like a puppet man.
Oh.
It's never acknowledged in the show. He's just like, oh, it's my weird cousin. Skeeter is voiced by Bill Bellamy.
Oh.
And there are 2 episodes at the end of season 2 that feature Kenan Rockmore and Kel Kimball.
Oh.
So I do not think we have seen the last of Kenan and Kel and Bill Bellamy.
Well, we'll have to make sure we check those episodes out.
I agree. Maybe once we run out Kenan and Kel, we'll do Who? I'm Wild Wild West, parts 1 and 2.
Perhaps we will.
Yeah. Until then, let's talk ratings. I reevaluated the IMDb scores and stuff like that. Pretty much every one of the ratings is like plus minus 0.02.
Right.
From where it used to be. And because they're all so close, like that means some jumped up like 10 rankings, some went like dropped 7, and some went 1 or 2. So not the best method of tracking them. I will say Picture Imperfect is high up on the list. It's ranked 14 with a 7.9.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty well-received episode. Aaron, out of 10 bottles of orange soda, how many would you give it this episode?
Adam, I would give this a 9. 9 bottles of orange soda.
Very good. This episode for me had a lot of winning moments. I originally was thinking like a 7.5. The more we talked about it, the more I really want to give it some credit.
It's a great episode.
It's an 8.5 for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This one was just classic Kenan and Kel. Even though the writers were different, they understood the characters and they understood the supporting characters.
Versus the writer last week, Chris Brown, who he watched Kenan and Kel, but he didn't get it. These two get it.
And they get it, and we jump back from Rigby's to Kenan's to the school to Rigby's to the school and the dark room, and it's like moving around, fast pace, that builds on itself. It's a great episode. As I've said many times, I think everybody should try to give it a shot, give it a watch.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this episode, you can on Paramount Plus, or elsewhere online if you're savvy.
Yeah, good luck with that.
We're going to be taking a week off because you're traveling to Florida.
I am, yes, to the Food Lion capital of the world, Georgia. I'll be passing through. So
yeah, you're going through to the Universal Studios to watch a Kenan and Kel live.
That's exactly. I would love if that was true.
Get slimed on.
Oh my god.
After that, we'll be returning for episode 18 in season 3.
He Got Job, directed by Virgil Fabian and written by Savage Steve Holland. So we're gonna have some fun with this one. Virgil and Savage Steve are a good combo.
And we finally get to the bottom of Chris starts to crack down on Kel taking all his free orange soda.
Oh yeah, something that's been coming up again and again. So we'll finally get to the bottom of it.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Until next time, here it goes. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Kenan and Kel with Adam and Aaron. If you want to stay in touch, send us an email at KenanKelPodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a voice message at anchor.fm/KenanKelPodcast. Our social media accounts are all at KenanKelPodcast. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks, everybody.